We're glad you're with us today for another great edition of the Retirement Education Hour. I'm Megan Mozak, back in the studio for a brand new year with financial instructors Kirk Cassidy and Michael Mazarin. They're both here from the Retirement Education Foundation. Each and every week, we talk to you about the latest goings-on in retirement planning, what it takes to plan for your successful retirement. This is something that does not happen by accident. It takes a lot of education, and that's why we've got the Retirement Education Foundation. It really is their mission to help you understand all the pieces, parts involved in having that great retirement and planning accordingly. We'll be telling you about the Foundation's courses. These are like master's level courses held at local colleges and universities right in your community. We're going to tell you how to sign up. And boy, do we have a great program for you today. We're going to discuss lessons learned in 2024 that can serve you well this year in 2025. And I guess according to you and Michael, Kirk, there's a lot we learned in 2024.
There was, Megan. And so I think it's always helpful. So some people may be listening today and saying, this sounds a little fluffy, right? Lessons learned from 2024 for 2025. The reason we feel it's so important is I want to make sure our listeners recognize that we are a national charity. That's what we are. And we've been teaching people about retirement planning for over a decade now. We have taught over 10,000 people in person in major universities and colleges in your area. We have podcasts, TV shows, radio shows from the charity that is teaching people around the country on how to prepare for retirement and through retirement. This is not a financial service company. We are a charity. And so we have the benefits to meet thousands and thousands of people and learn the mistakes that they have made through their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so the goal for the charity is to help you to make better choices around retirement, to help you find the right teams to help you, because frankly, the majority of people going into retirement do not understand how their relationship with money will change, how much anxiety with money and finances as you age will impact your decision-making. Some of the most logical, smart, intelligent, highly educated people, very financially successful, that $1 to $20 million family, make critical mistakes because of the emotions associated with retirement and then through retirement based upon fear. And so we want to give you some of the lessons that many people we have taught learned in 2024. And the first lesson, Michael, is the lesson of we don't always get to choose when we get to retire. And this is a misconception a lot of people have.
So this is something that surprises a lot of people. And to your point, at the classes that we teach, a lot of this stuff is content that maybe some of the quantitative things you can find online through Googling and researching, but a lot of the things you can't find. It's just the experience of meeting and talking with thousands of people who are either retired or near retirement. And this pops up all of the time. People who tell us, well, I had a plan to work until I was 62, 65, 67, and then something happened. It's often either they get sick and they can't keep working, or they get let go from that job. Sometimes it's taking care of a loved one. But over 2/3 of people do not get to choose when they retire.
Say that again, Michael.
Over 2/3 of people. And so by the numbers, it's roughly 33% of people are forced to retire early or leave their role for their own health. Roughly 25% of people retire early because their company laid them off. And then about 10% of people leave and retire early to take care of a loved one. The numbers are staggering.
Michael, I think what's also interesting, the number of people that we, particularly over the last couple of years, we've seen in our classes that have been given an opportunity to retire, like a buyout package. Do you know how many people have been through our class and told us, hey, I took the package and panicked 2 days before the deadline or the day before the deadline and didn't take the buyout, and then came through our class and recognized they had way more than they needed to give them the retirement they wanted. They should have taken the package. They should have gotten out. You all are listening to general information falling into a cookie cutter size type of retirement. Our class, our 8-hour class taught over 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday at major universities in your area, is specifically designed for those people within 5 to 10 years retirement through retirement. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
You know, a challenge for all these people is that they have this this idea in their mind of when they're going to retire, and they always base it on very generic milestones. I'll retire at 62, that's when I qualify for Social Security, or 65 for Medicare. These things are factors in the decision, but they should be by no means the end-all, be-all decision in when to retire. A lot of people, Kirk, like you mentioned, a lot of people who we've met through the classes were able to retire sooner than they thought, but there was no flashing sign telling them you can afford to retire now. It simply came down to learning these things and building a plan for themselves.
Look, we say this every other show that we do on the radio, that your relationship with money is going to change. It has to change, but it will also change, one based and driven often by anxiety and fears. We like to describe, there's a stereotype out there, which we don't agree with. I mean, we've taught tens of thousands of people, helped hundreds or done radio and TV shows for hundreds of thousands of people that are using our content to make decisions about retirement. And I know we don't like the stereotype, but there's a stereotype that older people are cheap. And what we know because we've tracked it, we've studied the data, we've done tremendous amounts of research around this. Old people aren't cheap. They get scared. The older we get, the more scared we get about our money. And that is, there are cognitive reasons we get scared about our money, but the whole idea that I am never going to work again, so no one else is sending me money every month to live on, and then now I have to provide my own paycheck. And that's the way you need to treat it. It's like you become self-employed, and you need to make sure that you're taking a paycheck on a monthly basis for that consistency to help you manage some of the anxiety. And that's what our show's about, Michael. Our class is about. And it's 8 hours for a reason. Now, we give you the option for people around the country to stream into these classes, right? They can come and stream wherever they're at in the country while we're teaching live in the universities, and they can participate live with questions. But I got to tell you, if you're local, close to a college or university that's teaching this, for example, the University of Michigan or Michigan State University, both Troy and Novi campuses, or Oakland University or U of M Dearborn, or Columbia College or University of Missouri, wherever you're at, if you can come in person, the 8 hours that are taught over 2 evenings or one full Saturday, it is like a master's level course. It is an advanced course to help you prepare to make the right decisions, have the right relationship with your money, and then importantly, choose the right teams to help you. So if you'd like to register for one of our classes, all you have to do is make a $29 donation to charity. Register at retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
We're talking today again about those lessons from last year, and I want to talk to the two of you, Kirk and Michael, about external forces. We talk a lot about things we can control and things we can't control. How should we be thinking about those outside forces?
Well, some of those outside forces, let's name some of them, because it's remarkable how these external forces impact your decisions to whether to retire, how much money I spend in retirement, whether I go on vacation, do I buy a new home, do I downsize? All these external pressures, and it seems to center around things that we have no control over. Michael, we can't control who's being elected. We can't control the geopolitical issues if we're at war or not. We cannot control if the market is going through a recession or we're having inflation. There's these things that we can't control, but yet people allow those external things we can't control to dictate and drive the decisions they make.
So this is one thing we talk about a lot in the class, is the psychological aspect of this in terms of serving the money versus letting money serve you. So when people are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, early 50s, and you're building the wealth, yes, you have to serve the money. You have to work hard, earn well, save well, and let the money grow over time. But making that shift to letting the money serve you and not letting these external forces just buffet people left, right, across, being afraid about who might win the election, when the market might crash. No one knows these things. There's no crystal ball. And so people use that as an excuse for themselves as to why they're not going to retire yet, or why they're not going to take that vacation or not buy that car that they've been dreaming about forever. Because, well, what if I do that and then insert fear here? the person I don't like wins the election? What if the market crashes? What if something happens to my health? All these things are things that we can't control, and yet people allow it to dominate their decision making in retirement because they have no plan.
Michael, it's fascinating to watch because I can tell you who's being elected, what the market is doing is not ever impacting younger people who are working, who are getting paid by an employer. They're still going on vacation if we're in a recession. They're still buying new cars if they need a new car. They're still living their lives. They're not allowing these external pressures, these external issues that they can't control to impact them because someone else is sending them a paycheck. This is where the relationship flips with money in a number of different ways, right? You have to set up a plan knowing that we're going to have a major market event every 4 to 7 years throughout your retirement. So you can expect 3, 4, 5 times that you're going to go live through a major market event, a recession, geopolitical issues, politicians you don't like, who may be president. There are going to be all these variables that are constantly happening throughout your retirement that you can hang on to and use as a crutch to not spend and enjoy your money. And you know what the problem, Michael, is? The problem is once we hit 60 years old, the likelihood of medical issues that impact your quality of life significantly increases. It's not a little, it's a lot. It's massive. So we're going to wait for a president we like. We're going to wait for the economy to turn around when we're 70 years old. You could have a stroke tomorrow and never travel again in your lifetime. You may die next week. The likelihood of bad things happening medically in your 60s significantly increases. That can't be the way you live your life. And see, the problem is you are fighting a very powerful message that the financial service industry has been pushing to you guys and conditioning and training you. You don't know it, and people that are very successful want to think that they're not being influenced. You are. You have been conditioned to be afraid to spend your money in retirement. And the reason they do this, you have to hear us. I mean, this is a core aspect to our charity, is to help people to spend more money in retirement. Stop letting Susie Orman, the Dave Ramseys, your advisors tell you that you can't spend down your principal. You can, as long as you have a plan and have the levers in place. Because, again, we know we're going to have major market events. We are not going to try to time around those major market events. We're going to build a plan assuming they're going to happen and have accounts that we pivot to during times when the market's down. And other accounts we're going to pivot to when the times of the market is up. It's all about risk mitigation. And if we can just stop listening to the noise of the financial service industry convincing you not to spend, please know this. The entire financial service industry is conflicted. They're conflicted because the less you spend, the more we make. The less of your money you spend, the more we make. So, hear that. And this is why the class is so important, Michael.
Speaking of the industry plays on these fears. When people say, they go to their team and say, I'm nervous about a recession, they're going to say, yeah, you're right to be nervous. And maybe you should work 1 more year, 2 more years, 3 more years. And when you finally do retire, every model says you can only spend 4% or less. And if you're nervous, maybe you only spend 3% per year just in case. And the result is you work longer, you spend less, the portfolio balloons, which means they make more money. And when you pass away, sure, that's great. You're going to leave $1, $2, $3, $5 million to someone when you're gone. But for a lot of people, that's not their goal. Their goal is not to leave millions of dollars when they're gone. Their goal is to retire sooner, spend more money, enjoy the money. But there is no team or plan helping them to do that.
The class is specifically best suited. It really is. For those people who have, call it 700,000, maybe even $1 million, right? Call it 5 to 10 million. Maybe 20 million. So let's make it simple. That $1 to $20 million family, because you can afford to spend down your principal in a controlled fashion, which means you can retire earlier. You should be able to take, if someone risk mitigates and truly builds a comprehensive plan for you, you should be able to take 6, 7, 8, maybe 9% withdrawal rates. A lot more income, retire sooner, pay less taxes. That's what the class is going to teach you, what you can have. And then the class spends a big amount of time teaching you how to find the right teams to help you do that. That's the purpose of the charity. please register for one of these 8-hour courses taught at major universities and colleges in your area and stream live from the universities wherever you're at in the country so you can participate. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Listening from outside Michigan or Missouri? We stream courses live from the universities so you can attend anywhere in the country. Go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org to sign up. And now back to the show.
I want to go back to this great topic today on the show today. We're looking back so we can look ahead with confidence, and we're taking a look at those lessons that we learned in 2024 and trying to apply them to 2025. We were looking at external pressures, and Michael and Kirk, inflation, clearly one of those external pressures that we see. Talk to me about how inflation actually starts ending up impacting our retirement and retirees.
You know, it's interesting, Megan, because Michael Mazerin, a financial instructor for the Retirement Education Foundation, who's with us today, is a regular contributor. He is on every week or every other week, whatever it is, on one of the local networks, morning news, as the financial expert, right? He comes on as a financial instructor, and I think it's 1 in every 3 segments. They want you to talk about inflation, the impacts it has on people's finances, short-term, long-term, constantly asking him about this topic. And what's fascinating, right, when he's on TV, he's talking to a broad audience, right? And I think TV loves to try to drive the younger audience because that's where they make their revenue. Local TV makes it off the younger audience, although I think more of the older audience is watching the local news. But setting that aside, when we're on this radio show, we're really focusing on those people within 10 years of retirement through retirement. That is the focus. And from an inflation perspective, I find it fascinating that our industry goes out and scares people as they age about inflation. It is such a non-factor for retirees. I mean, and I don't want to dismiss people. I don't want people to think I don't appreciate that things cost more money and you feel the stress of inflation. What I'm going to tell you is that you shouldn't, for a lot of people. Now, there's some people that don't have the resources, but that $1 to $20 million family, even that $700 to $20 million family, where you're going to die and leave hundreds of thousands of dollars to your children. Inflation today is not yes, you're spending more money, but it's not going to cause you to outlive your money. Our industry sells fear. Fear is what gets you to buy the annuity. I mean, listen to every person on the radio and TV today, these paid shows that you're listening to, which is funny because we're on the radio and it sounds similar, but we're a charity. They are for profit, every one of them, and I know everyone on the local stations. I know the companies. Go look them up. Go look up and see how much money they have under management. They are insurance salespeople. They are selling insurance. Our industry sells fear to get you to buy insurance products, to get you to spend less. Remember, the less you spend, the more they make. That's the fact. So they're incentivized to create fear on inflation. But Michael, we know, we have the data. The government knows the data. The financial industry knows that inflation for a retiree who has resources. I'm not talking about the average retiree with $200,000 saved that really has to be worried about outliving their money. But those people, 700 million plus, inflation is, tell us why it's okay. They're not going to outlive their money because of this inflation they're experiencing right now.
Well, when people always talk about inflation, they're always referencing typically the headline inflation number. So in 2021, 2022, we got up to 7, 8, 9% inflation. And people started losing their minds. And I get it, back in 21, 22, there was a lot of inflation at the grocery stores and things like, and vehicles was crazy. But typically, with typical inflation, the two most impactful numbers are housing And on average, people, once they're retired, are not buying houses constantly. And if you are, you own a home that's also appreciating, so it helps to offset that. And education expenses. Unless you're paying for education for your grandchildren, it's not impacting you. So there are other things. Medical expenses will inflate as well, food and energy. But these are the fears that the industry will push on people, saying, oh my gosh, you cannot retire. You need to save $5, $8, $10 million before you retire because of inflation. It's nonsense.
It's nonsense. Here's why. That's one of the reasons, because many of the inflation things won't impact them as they age as much. But the biggest factor, everyone listen, the biggest factor is we know your spending patterns will significantly reduce in your 80s. It reduces in your 70s. So you're going to spend most in your 60s. It's going to slightly reduce in your 70s, somewhere north of 75. Usually around 78, 80 is when spending falls off of a cliff, literally falls off of a cliff. The government has tracked this data for decades. The financial service industry knows you're not going to spend anything when you're in your 80s. Although you're taking so much less in your 60s when you're active and healthy, so you can be forced to take so much in your 80s that you won't even spend. So I know the fear is health, long-term care. I get it. Come to the class. There are ways to mitigate some of these risks through proactive planning. The fear of one spouse predeceasing the other spouse early and the tax implications. There are risk mitigation tools, not products. I'm not talking about something that someone's going to sell you. There are planning strategies, forget the products, that will help you mitigate those risks. And you're not going to spend in your 80s because you're going to go from multiple cars down to one car in your 80s. Your home's probably going to be paid for. You eat like birds in your 80s. You don't travel nearly as much. All of those expenses that you racked up in your 60s and 70s all changes. The national data is told. We've tracked this for years. We have taught tens of thousands of people. We know what you're going to spend. Please do yourself a favor, especially you $1 to $10 million families who are a little overconfident. Come to this 8-hour, almost master's level class at universities and colleges. It's 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. Come in person if you can. Honestly, it is comprehensive. You're going to wish it was 3 days long. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org, retirementplanningedu.org.
Classes are forming now. Go to retirementplanningedu.org to register. Again, that's retirementplanningedu.org. Use the promo code PODCAST to receive 50% off your tuition. And now, back to the show.
Today, we're looking back so we can look ahead with confidence, the lessons learned in 2024 and how we can apply those in 2025. There is a blind spot, and this is a big lesson. Kirk and Michael, you say we can apply to this brand new year, 2025. What is it?
So I think this is the single biggest blind spot we have experienced and witnessed over the last decade. The charity has been teaching these classes. Right? For over 10,000 people we have taught in these 8-hour classes. And it's something called sequence of returns risk. Now, you may have recently heard this, maybe on different radio shows, TV shows, articles now. You could go to Forbes or Kiplinger's where advisors paid to put their ads in to make it sound like they were asked to write an article. And sequence of returns risk is a common topic people are talking about. This is a complicated mistake that, if managed properly, is what's going to allow you to have a lot more income in retirement with a lot less fear. This is the number one risk mitigation strategy that you need to learn and understand to be able to not outlive your money. In fact, not outlive your money, but also spend 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates. It is what the financial service industry will talk to you about, but none of them will really execute. The problem is they'll talk about it, but you don't know if they're actually providing the strategies and solutions to manage it, right? So if anyone says to you, sequence of returns risk, and then at the same time tell you you can only take 4% withdrawal rates, they're not managing sequence of returns risk. If they were really managing your individual plan, custom to you, specific to you, they're going to have strategies in there to manage this issue. Now, Michael, by the way, it is also the charity. This is the number one downloaded white paper, and we have an interactive calculator on the charity's website. It's the number one downloaded thing on our charity's website. Real quick, Michael, I want to tell the listeners, you know who 50% of the downloads are people in the financial service industry trying to learn what this means so that they can promote like they're doing it.
That unfortunately does not surprise me. This is sequence of returns risk, just to define it really quickly here, is the risk of if something negative in the market happens in the first 5 years before you retire or the first 5 years in retirement. So that 10-year period, the first 5 years before you retire and the first 5 years after you retire, if there's a negative event in the market, can really derail someone's retirement. And the problem is that, like we've said before, no one has that crystal ball. So because the industry is reading up on the white papers and the resources we put out there on sequence of returns risk, they'll talk to their clients about, sequence of returns risk, if the market crashes in your first year of retirement, it's really damaging. And you tell them, okay, that's good to know. So what are we going to do about that? And they shrug their shoulders and they say, well, maybe you should work a little longer or only spend 4% per year. And if the market falls, you got to spend less because 4% of your then smaller portfolio is even less income. That is not the solution. There are solutions that can be had to protect your income from sequence of returns risk. It is not shrugging your shoulders and hoping for the best, or even worse, trying to find some silver bullet of some person who thinks they can time the market.
Oh, the silver bullet is insurance salespeople pretending to be financial advisors that will say, this insurance product will help you manage sequence of returns risk, which to some degree it does, but it doesn't. So here's the deal. And I warned you this would be 2 segments. So Michael gave you a very simplified answer to this. Let me give you another version of this, and we'll continue the conversation specifically how to manage income in the next segment, okay? And how to manage the sequence of returns risk so you can have more income. So here's the problem. We don't know when we're going to have major market events. No one does. Nobody can. Now, people in the financial service industry will pretend that they can time the market and they're tracking something. And so we're going to market time your investments to manage sequence of returns risk. If anyone says they are market timing and buying and selling based upon anything, they are lying to you. Don't listen to that.
Well, they've gotten wise a little bit. They've stopped using the phrase market timing because people have caught on that no one can market time. So the industry stopped using that phrase. Now they're using phrases like we have an algorithm, momentum, we have a pulse on the market. These are all words that simply mean market timing. It's all nonsense.
It's crap. Sorry. It's just pure crap. This is just laziness because it's simple. Instead of building you an individualized, customized plan with risk mitigation strategies built in, to properly manage sequence of returns risk, you have to have a lot of different accounts. It is not simple. Retirement planning, if you want to retire earlier, spend 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates instead of 4%. Risk mitigate against outliving your money and being able to spend more. You have to have many different accounts with different types of risk structure built into them. And what you're going to do is you're going to market time your income, not your investments. You're just going to change where you take your income from when markets are down and volatile versus when the markets are up. And you have to have that flexibility to pivot to different accounts during different market volatility. And this is very difficult to do. It's nuanced, and there's not a lot of people in the country that does it. That's the purpose of our class, is to help you to understand what they should be doing and then identify if they are doing it and then help you find the right teams to do it. We're going to give you the tools to go see if your team does it and go, if not your team, other teams in your area that may be able to do it. You'll be able to filter out if someone is doing something specific for you to manage sequence of returns risk so that you can have more income, retire sooner. So sign up for one of our 8-hour classes. The charity teaches these at major universities and colleges. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. To find our latest white papers and webinars, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. And remember to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
We've been talking today about lessons from 2024 that we can learn from and we can apply to this brand new year we're in, 2025, so we could be more confident about our retirement. Kirk and Michael, we were talking about something called sequence of return risk. And that's a mouthful, but really it's pretty basic when it comes down to it. You want your money to last, and you have to be very strategic in the way you withdraw that money in retirement. Tell us what people are missing and what we can learn going forward.
Well, continuation from the last segment, we said this is the blind spot that we've just seen over the 10,000 people that our charity has now taught at major colleges and universities. It's something we talk about a lot, and I know people on our podcasts they probably have it sort of memorized now. And we have such a big following on our podcast. It's amazing. It's incredible the amount of people our charity is now impacting and changing their retirements. And you guys know our message. Our message is about finding ways for you to retire earlier, spend more money. Despite what the financial service industry tells you, you can spend more money. You can take 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates and pay less taxes by having the right teams helping you. The problem is you don't know what to look for from a planning perspective to identify if you have the right teams. So that's also a big part of the 8-hour classes. How do you do background check? What specific questions to ask? Showing you examples of what a real comprehensive retirement plan will look like. And it's much of the income, the ability to take as much income, that 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates, and retire earlier is around managing this sequence of returns risk. It's about managing your income during the different market events that you're going to experience. You're going to experience a lot of volatility through retirement. The last 10 years, the last decade plus is not typical. It is not normal. You're going to have 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 major market events throughout your retirement. And no one, not an economist, not anybody is going to predict when those are going to happen effectively to help manage that risk. So to manage that risk, it requires really customized planning, not products. It's not a product. Stop telling the annuity people that's trying to sell you based upon your fear of outliving your money. Stop. It's about managing where you're taking your income from during different market events, market volatility. We do not want to withdraw money ever from our portfolio when markets are down. We have to have pivot accounts in place that we can pivot to because we know we're going to have down markets. In fact, on average, Michael, since 1980, the S&P 500 has experienced over a 14% drawdown per year, meaning at some point in the year, it's down 14%, Michael.
And when that's happening, if someone's pulling their income willy-nilly out of accounts while they're retired and the market's down 14% or more frequently, that's where they get caught. And this is all about the average return versus real return. And this is, Kirk referenced the calculator on our website. You know, what's interesting and kind of funny is the people who this clicks with the most typically are the engineers, because the engineers are so math-centric, math-focused when they're thinking. And a lot of them have told us, I feel kind of silly, to be honest, because I'm an engineer. I'm really, really good at math, and this concept never clicked with me of real return versus average returns. The average return in the market in your portfolio when you're pulling your money out is not relevant.
It's not relevant at all. Zero.
What's relevant is the real return, which is impacted by the sequence of the returns. When are the good years? When are the bad years? Because when those bad years occur, which they're going to, no one can predict those things. If there is no plan to pivot and have an account that's not tied to the stock market, you're going to blow yourself up. And what a lot of people don't realize is they don't discover that until it's too late. If there's a bad year, they don't have a pivot account. They just keep pulling money out willy-nilly because they've told themselves forever the market's going to recover, which it will. The market always will recover, but the market takes 2, 3, 4 years to recover. The market's back to all-time highs, but their portfolio is still down 40%. And that's when they realize, oh no, I made a massive mistake. I pulled out money from my accounts when the market was down, my account was down. So when the market recovers, those dollars are no longer there to recover anymore. And that's what's scary is that's a permanent mistake. You can't fix that. Once that happens, you are done. The choice is either go back to work or spend less money. But you can prevent that from happening. It just takes a plan.
It does, Michael. Next segment, we're going to specifically talk about a plan, what a plan looks like. But to your point, Michael, it is so important that people connect this dot because we don't know when those events are going to happen. And this is why the financial service industry came up with the 4% rule. Because if they just take 4% out, it doesn't matter what the market volatility, it doesn't matter the sequence of returns risk. It doesn't fail, but maybe 10%, 15% of the time. Maybe it's closer to 20% now, but it's less likely to fail if they just take 4% withdrawals. So that's what typically people teach you. That's what the general rule is, 4%. The reason is because no one wants to, people in our industry don't want to teach you to spend your money, and they don't want to take the time to manage that risk, that sequence of returns risk. But if you manage it and you have an effective plan that mitigates that risk, you can have 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates, not 4%, with almost no chance of outliving your money. So attend one of our 8-hour courses. These are things we teach you. This is almost like a master's level course. It's comprehensive, folks. I'll prepare you. All you have to do is make a $29 donation to charity to attend. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
All right, Kirk, Michael, great show today as we've been looking back at 2024, the lessons learned, and seeing what we can learn and then apply to 2025. You always say it does come down to one central theme. What is it?
Everyone who's been listening to our shows for years knows what this segment's going to be about. It's going to be around planning. I mean, that's the core of this, the purpose of our charity. Just as a quick note, side note, here I go. Squirrel. Real quick, Michael's giggling over here. So I want to make sure everyone understands, right? We are a charity. We've taught over 10,000 people for over a decade in major colleges and universities. What you may not realize is the number of financial instructors, people that are in the business that donate their time as volunteers to teach these classes, advisors, CPAs, and attorneys who are teaching these classes, along with the Retirement Education Foundation has started a financial literacy program for high school juniors and seniors going into local high schools to teach a little more, well, we'll just say it is advanced financial literacy we can teach these juniors and seniors. So with this knowledge, with this experience, with this exposure, these people come with a great amount of industry knowledge, but really based in the data. They bring back the data that they've been tracking in their private practices to be able to help people to change their retirement. And one of the common mistakes that we hear constantly is people working longer than they need to, being afraid to retire, not realizing they're afraid to retire until they come to the class and realize that they've just been afraid to retire because they don't have a plan. Look, you all, the goal here for most people, now legacy may be a priority for some of you, and if that's the case, you don't have to compromise your retirement to create a legacy. There's other strategies. But for most people, it's about what do I need to give me the retirement I want, right? And for many of you, we meet people in their late 50s all the time, in their 60s. They have what they need to give them what they want, but no one has shown them. No one has proven it to them. They have not been convinced. They don't know. Fear is driving their excuses. I got to work until Social Security. I got to work until Medicare kicks in, like something magical happens, like Medicare's free or something. These irrational excuses that are centered around anxiety and fear that people men don't want to admit to themselves that they have, and you do have. So look, if you don't know what a real retirement plan is, let me restate that. You don't know what a real retirement plan looks like. I can promise you that. I'll prove it to you. Just go to the charity's website. Just watch. We have a webinar that you can sign up anytime you want. It's a webinar specifically showing you what a sample retirement plan should look like with all the different levers that should be included. And in this example, I think it's an 8% withdrawal rate for someone in their 63, 64 years old. I think that's what it is. 8% withdrawal rate, not 4, 8 at 63 or 64. So a plan drives everything. So anyone that's telling you that's in the financial service industry, once you retire, we'll build your plan, you don't have an advisor that is an expert at retirement planning, you need to find somebody else. I'm telling you right now, if you don't have a plan and you're within 5 years of retirement, 7 years of retirement, you need a comprehensive plan that looks like what is showing on our website. Go to our website and see it. You'll see it. It maps out where you're taking income from. It has pivot accounts. It has a lot of different accounts, mapping out taxes for the next 20 years, how to fill brackets, not bump brackets, when to take Social Security, when to take lump sum or pension. It maps out every step every year. If the market's up, where am I taking my income from? If the market's down, where am I taking my income from? Michael, what am I missing?
So these are the things, we're coming out of the holidays, and I always kind of laugh because family and friends will ask me, oh, I know that you're in the financial service, the education space, and so what should I do with my money? And I tell them, listen, there is no simple answer to this. There is no simple answer. I start to explain all the factors that go into this, and I can see the eyes glaze over, and they go, never mind. They walk away.
I got a guy. I got a guy.
Everyone wants a simple answer, and the reason that the class is 8 hours long is because there is no simple answer to this. The class is 8 hours long. We have people attend the class 2, 3, 4 times sometimes to get more and more insight to this. There is no simple answer, and anyone who says, oh, well, here's your dial of success. You're in the 88% green zone of your dial. That means you're good. Don't worry about it. That's not an answer. Or we'll build a plan for you when you get there. That's not an answer. All of these things, it takes a lot of work to get it done. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of work for the people to figure out, how do I find the team that's going to really do this for me and not just throw a simple cookie cutter solution at me?
I think that's probably the most, I don't know if it's the most valuable, but it's very valuable. We spent probably about an hour going through, how do you choose an advisor? How do they get paid? How do you do background checks? What specific questions to ask? What should a plan actually look like in the different things that should be part of a plan, so that you are informed when people put things in front of you, whether that should be part of your plan, or is it really a comprehensive plan, or is it cookie cutter? So again, 8 hours, 2 evenings or 1 full day at major universities and colleges in your area. All you have to do is make a $29 donation to charity. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Retirement Education Foundation is a fiscally sponsored program of United Charitable, a registered 501c3 public charity. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any insurance discussed in this show is backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Retirement Education Foundation is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Retirement Education Foundation. This radio show is paid for by the Retirement Education Foundation.